There's a body laying in there all covered with beetle feces, and they didn't know what they were looking at, other than it was a body. And they freaked out. I mean, that's an old folks' home, retirement home. You know, nobody missed him.
Right.
Nobody missed him. And, you know, just one of those things. But, yeah, funeral homes, they're not so bad. They're fairly highly regulated.
Yeah, they seem to keep each other in check, too.
They do. And, you know, if one guy gets in trouble, everybody looks at this thing with the rest of the profession. You know, a cop gets in trouble, or a fireman gets in trouble, or an EMS guy. They look at you all like, yeah, we know what you guys do. We know the way you are. And you just don't want that brush to brush over you. Right.
You said you had the move thing, which has got to be a huge thing. I'm trying to think. There's so many things that you have had to have seen that just defy description. With the science of what you did, the reliable factors for determining time of death, if you don't have witnesses and stuff like that, there's still insect activity, body temperature, and what else?
Well, you do everything from the body temperature, how stiff they are, how stiff they're not. You know, what's the environmental temperature, you know, lividity.
Rigor mortis, liver mortis.
Right, all that good stuff. And it's a lot of that's an educated guess. A body temperature is supposed to not be, but it's all based upon the average body in the average room and the average conditions. Like if you're doing, like for instance, let's say you're an athlete and you're running the mile and a half, whatever you're running, and you drop dead. You might be in complete rigor mortis by the time you hit the ground.
Dehydrated?
No. Just because of the way the enzymes are in your body. And, you know, people don't realize that sometimes. A lot of that is you got to make your observations at the scene. And what I would always do, I would always wait a half an hour to an hour and redo them same observations again to see the rate of change. Okay. To see if the curve was on the right, you know, like you're doing things on a curve.
Right.
And you just would do it that way. And if you did it that way, it was fairly reliable.
Is insect activity still fairly reliable?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And does any of the wackiness of weather and the way weather's gotten so bizarre impact the way the insects come into play?
Nah, I don't think so. Not that I saw.
Now you said that body in the morgue had beetle dung all over it.
Right.
At what point are you at the beetle dung stage?
Years, unless they introduced him on purpose. He was in there probably 4 or 5 years, we figured. And, you know, nobody cared. Nobody knew he was missing. I mean, how does that happen?
Yeah, I mean, somebody had to lock that door.
Uh-huh. Somebody who didn't, you know, probably some minimum wage guy who didn't want to be bothered, didn't want to do his job. His supervisor was probably saying, well, I'm losing my job too, I don't care. And that's when you have problems.
Well, you see that, I've seen, you know, there's cases every now and then come up that are horrible where somebody will just dump a body not because of a crime, but more because they don't want to do their job and take it here or take it there. I've seen searches where tombstones were illegally dumped, which was very creepy. And there was that. It was several years ago. It wasn't here; it was down south, but it's just burned into my head. There was a crematorium that the guy was not cremating the bodies. His parents had him taken over.
Oh, he just stacked them up in the garage or something?
In cars everywhere. And he was getting 6 bodies in the back of a hearse, and this case just kept growing and growing, and he had put the bodies everywhere, and then they were doing an interview with the sheriff, and he was saying we found 6 bodies here. They were putting them 2 or 3 in a coffin and everything, and then one of the reporters or something during this live thing said to the sheriff, "Has anybody drained that lake?" And you saw his face, you just saw the color drop out of his face because he didn't think about it. And then after they did all this, they found out that the crematorium wasn't even broken. The guy just did not operate it right. And his parents had dumped too much on him. They were ailing, and they dumped too much on him, and he was just trying to keep the money. He thought he was saving up to fix it, and it wasn't broken. But there's, you know, people don't think about the that whole end of life thing. You see funeral cemeteries go out of business. What's the in Philly, Mount Moriah? It's way in the southwest. It's kind of abandoned.
Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah, I think it's almost across the county line.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. But yeah, it's like everything else. It's a business to a lot of people, and but they are the exception rather than the rule in that industry, as far as I'm concerned. Even like you would see. Let's say funeral director A goes out of business and he's stiffing, to use a better term. No, I didn't do that intentionally, but you understand what I'm saying. He's just cheating somebody that they paid, or they got what do they call it, the pre-needs thing, where you pay money in advance for the funeral,
right?
And they go out of business and say, "The hell with you, we're not going to do it." And there's supposed to be safeguards against that, but then the other funeral directors will step up and say, "Listen, we'll take care of that, and we're not going to charge anybody anything just to get the goodwill of the community back again."
Yeah,
and you do see that. We saw that a lot.
That's an amazing thing about that industry, is that the funeral directors will step up to fill up a void, and it's not like they're trying to get any notoriety. They're just trying to right a wrong. And it'd be so nice if so many if professions were like that.
There's, it's the one thing was like when you had a lot of, not when you had a lot of, but when you have like a sudden infant death, there were certain funeral homes that would call you and say, if that family has no resources, let us know, and we'll get the resources to them.
Did they want to remain anonymous?
Most of them, yeah, they did. Which is a good thing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
a lot of times, your clergy in the archdiocese, the priest would call up and say, well, we'll get them a free cemetery plot, and I'll call our funeral director to take care of it. So Father Jones would call up his guy and say, get this done, and they did it at no charge sometimes for the family. Usually no charge for the family, stuff like that.
Did that happen dozens of times a year?
Maybe a dozen times, or maybe 24 times a year. Yeah, I would say it happened more than once a year. So there's a lot of good people out there. You just can't. Not everybody has their hand in your pocket.
See, and I don't think people realize that. I don't think until you said that, I don't think people put that together. That there are people that, because we're so used to now, everybody wants to. If somebody picks up a piece of trash, they want to do a video and put it on Facebook.
We had a girl that got murdered up here in Philadelphia. Mommy's boyfriend killed her, threw her on a train. She wound up in Florida. Florida had no idea who she was. Florida did what they had to do. Then he wound up burying her down in Florida. Ultimately, the two databases met. They had this unknown girl. We had a missing girl. We put two and two together, and it was her. Mom did not have a nickel or a dime to get this girl home. Our friends in the news media got involved with it and made a few phone calls and got her got her dug up in Florida, transported up here, and had nice services for the family. So at least Mom knew where her daughter was and had a place to go when she wanted to.
Yeah, and that's important.
That's a guy from the news media who had no obligation whatsoever, and didn't even push it as a exclusive on channel X, Y, and Z.
Well, and I think the best work is done by people that want to remain. That's the whole point of the show. People want to remain in the shadows, and it's like you want to help with unfairness. You want to help balance things, but you may not be a huggy feely kind of guy that wants to celebrate it. I just want to balance the things out. When you said through on a train, what do you mean?
Trains. There's a train comes through Philadelphia, a freight train. They call it the juice train, the Tropicana juice train. That is what they call a hot train. When it goes up, they don't want nothing in the way because Tropicana delivers fresh juice. Well, on the way back, it's not such a thing. He threw it in a Tropicana car. It was stopped on the siding momentarily in North Philadelphia, and the girl wound up in Florida, back by where the orange groves were when they opened the car up. Because they don't inspect those cars at every stop.
Right, especially going back.
Right, correct.
Yeah, well, there's...
He almost got away with it.
I like to learn new things that I did not know there was a juice train that.
Oh, listen, that's a hot train, boy. you don't mess with that train.
That's really interesting. The juice train. How long ago did you retire?
January the 14th, 2011.
You remember the exact date?
Yes. I know the first day I started work, too.
Do you ever miss it?
Nah. I miss some of the people I work with, but, that's a phone call away. Because we get together sporadically.
Has it changed the way you look at the world?
Since I've left or since I started working there? Yeah.
Both.
Yeah, absolutely. Every day you wake up's a good day.
Well, it's amazing. People don't realize how these bad things...
How fragile life is.
Right, they make you appreciate it.
I mean, like, I'm a seatbelt Nazi. Absolutely. Anybody that gets in my car says, God damn, I'm a grown man. Yeah? And I'm not telling your wife who went out the window because I, had to slam on the brakes. Any kids, whether they're my kids, other kids, they know that seatbelt has to go on. I won't even start the car up without them having the seatbelt on.
Yeah.
And you understand what that's about. Because, most of your fatalities come from the ejection.
Yeah, I remember seeing it. I won't even say it on the radio. That's not even good enough for radio. But there was one incident that just drove it home about seatbelts, and then there was there was an old public service announcement, a state trooper from some state in the South saying, "I never unbuckled a dead body," and that always stuck in my head.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I have unbuckled dead bodies. But they weren't.
You just ruined it.
But they weren't dead with the car. They weren't dead from a car accident. That they were dead from being shot up or whatever.
Okay. But they were shot and left in the car. They weren't.
Correct. It wasn't from the car accident. They were dead.
And it's funny because people don't think about what happens and there's a whole industry for cleaning up after these things. Where it's a big business. I mean, I was involved in an insurance thing, and the bill for a guy bleeding in a house came to $31,000, ripping up the floors and everything. They just went nuts and treated everything like a biohazard.
Oh. Did they go extreme sometimes?
Because they're going through the insurance company and they're getting all the money.
I know a friend of mine bought a house, and I'm in this new house one day, and he showed me around his new house, and he had been a carpenter in the Army, and he's got a new wife and a wife and a new kid, and he's happy as can be. And I said, I've been in this house before. No, you haven't. Yes, I have. No, you haven't. And I said, an old man shot himself in the second floor back bedroom. No. So we go upstairs, and we pull up the rug on the floor, and the floor is right where I said it would be, soaked with blood, but it was all varnished over. He flipped. The wife flipped.
Oh, my.
Yeah. I mean, there was nothing wrong with it. I mean, it was cleaned up. It was perfectly safe. But just hey, listen, that real estate guy had to get all that tore up because they didn't disclose the problem.
Yeah, they're legally, if something happens.
Oh yeah,
it's
like a biohazard site. You buy a house and it's been a waste dump for years. They've got to clean it up.
Well, and there's also a stigma. I mean, when you tell them that changes their whole perception of their dream house. Mm-hmm. I was going to buy captain's chairs. A buddy of mine said I got a good deal on captain's chairs, and I said, it was dirt cheap. It was like, that's incredibly cheap. I see them, and so I look at them and go, They're bullet holes in them. Like, that's why they're so cheap. Like, I don't consider myself a bit of a prima donna, but it looks like two people got slaughtered in these chairs. Well, you could put seat covers on it. Nah. I've seen it.
Yeah.
During the course of your 35 years, had you been back to the same house multiple times on multiple occasions?
Yes. I've been back to the same family on multiple occasions.
What's the record for number of times you've been to?
Private house, probably about 3 times.
3 times, same house?
Yeah, that would have to be, yeah. And that was over stupid drug stuff.
3 times, same house.
I mean, they don't learn, I mean, you figure there's bad dope on the street, you leave it alone. but they don't, and then they get involved with their silly fighting or getting, somebody shoots somebody or somebody stabs somebody, and here we go all over again.
And